This episode is brought to you by Pinpoint, the award-winning applicant tracking system built just for SMEs. They've got more features than you can shake a stick at, from self-serve interview booking to easy-to-use workflow automation. Just say that you heard about them through the show to get a Friends of the Pod discount. So I could not be more excited about today's episode of We Need to Talk About HR because it's a podcast first. Yes, it's the first episode in a 3-part series that we're going to run over the next couple of years. We're going to track the impact of a really thoughtful and interesting EDI strategy. And we're going to do it in real time. So we're lucky enough to have caught Elizabeth Hardwick-Smith, the Group People and Culture Director at Everard, at the perfect time. She's been brought in to the business to transform the function from administrative to truly transformation. And recently, EDI has moved up the agenda. So we're going to be jumping off right at the beginning of a new strategy and seeing what happens. So Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much, Felix. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, it's great. As I said, it's great to have you on. Can you just give me like a little bit of background? So you've been at the business for a while now. Why did they bring you in? What have you been up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Everard for 5 years, and I've actually been in the construction industry for just under 15 years, which is quite a stretch. I know the industry really, really well. And you're right in saying that I was brought in to bring something different. So everything was functioning really well from a people point of view in terms of getting the sort of, I guess, the governance and the compliance right, and all of your sort of everyday expectations of getting the basics right. That was absolutely running really well. But the business was about to enter a new strategic plan period. We were getting ready to launch Plan 25, which was going to see us through the period of 2020 to 2025. So my recruitment came about in 2019, and I was recruited, as you say, to transform the people offering and to take it to a completely new level, to the extent that we were aspiring to be a top employer, an employer of choice, and to be leading the way in a number of people strategies within the industry. So just to give you a bit of a potted history, the business has been running for well over 150 years now. But this was our first people strategy, which is just unbelievable to me, for that length of time to pass without a sense of strategic direction for people. And, we employ over 700 professionals right across the built environment. We're a multidisciplinary organisation with lots of highly qualified, intelligent people. And we're all working within a highly competitive, talent-short market. So that people strategy was going to be absolutely crucial to differentiate ourselves from everybody else.
That's really, you joined 5 years ago, but they were already an established business.
Yes.
Well-known, yes. Great work. What were the sort of areas that you saw real deficiencies for not having people strategies in place?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, as I say, all of the basics fine. We've got our compliance in terms of having some good, solid statutory policies in place. What they weren't was market leading. What we weren't doing is really engaging our people. I think the rewards package was fairly basic. There was not much happening in the EDI and the well-being sphere. And certainly the leadership team were not talking about performance and not talking about succession and talent development as much as I felt it needed to be, to drive us to that next level as a business.
Yeah, well, you can see how all of those things are going.
Yeah, absolutely, really crucial. As I say, they'd got growth goals. So when I joined, we were 450, and we were, a 5 to 6 person HR team. And so the task ahead was absolutely huge. We've got a growth plan. We'd got transformational HR needing to happen, and we'd got actually quite a few strategic areas that we weren't giving adequate attention to, I would say, which I think we were in danger of leaving us behind, but also had the ability to impact on our future performance as a business.
And that growth then, is that, just to give listeners a bit of a feel for the kind of business Pick Everard are, is that organic? Is it M&A?
It's organic. It's organic. So one of the first things I did was to expand the talent team. So we've got 2 in the talent attraction team. We've now got 5 in the team. And we wanted to have a much, much stronger employer brand, to drive as strong a direct hire strategy as possible. But we were relatively unknown as an employer. And I think there was a lot of reliance on our reputation in the market as being, really strong client experience, certainly, and growing portfolio of excellent clients, but not much to sell from an employee perspective.
Yeah.
So the two worked well hand in hand with each other to strengthen that employer brand and to get our key messaging right about the journey that we were going on.
Excellent. Everyone loves I feel like that's joining a company with momentum is always really exciting.
Absolutely. And I think the size that we are as well, we're able to harness employee voice really well. So whilst we're not short of ideas as a team, the most important thing for us really is to make sure we're shaping the workplace for our people, and we have to have their input in order for that to be successful.
Yeah, fascinating. Great. So I love a sort of meandering conversation, but I think really there's a lot to talk about in EDI.
Yes.
So now you and I know the context. So I think before we go into Pick Everard, I think maybe a lot of our listeners won't be coming from construction.
Absolutely.
So if you could maybe just give a bit of a background on what you found in the industry and then how that was mirrored in the organisation itself.
Absolutely. So the challenges that we see in any industry, are particularly felt strongly within construction. We are a construction consultancy practice, so we're not necessarily, sort of out on site quite as much as other construction businesses might be. But certainly across the industry, it is very male dominated, and it's very white male dominated as well. So in terms of sort of thinking about some of the statistics around it, you're probably looking in the region of about 15% of the workforce are female, and only between 3 to 5% of those will reach the top positions within the industry. In terms of ethnic minorities, it's around 5% of the workforce, and we actually don't know what are the statistics for LGBT plus, because there hasn't been enough research in that area. But I think for me across the industry, which I'll obviously come on and talk more about, there's certainly some movement and appetite to do more, and I'm seeing some good initiatives industry-wide, but we have large pools of talents that we're not tapping into, and we're not driving enough inclusivity for them and thinking about their needs quite as much, and that puts us in a real danger zone.
Yes,
I think as an industry.
It's where other industries were 3 decades ago.
Yes, yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, what the optimist in me is always just saying, what a great opportunity to make a real difference. Then lead from the front. Absolutely,
and I think that's how we felt. And I'll be honest, we're tip of the iceberg as a practice in this area, and I can certainly share my experiences so far in terms of what we've done. But yeah, there is a huge amount of potential. Not only in driving it ourselves, but in partnering with professional organisations and partnering with each other in industry forums to try and drive a wave of change, which is much needed.
Excellent. Well, with that in mind, it would be great if you could give us, when did you start? What is this? When did you start this process? When have you actually launched the strategy? I'd love to also hear a little bit about the strategy itself.
Okay, no problem. So, to be perfectly honest, we were quite back to front in terms of the launch of the strategy. So, we launched our people strategy, our 2020 to 2025, and it's very high level. So within that, there were a number of sort of high-level objectives as to what we wanted to achieve, and having a more diverse workforce was one of those. But we weren't very specific about what that was going to look like, and we certainly didn't have any tactical plans underneath it. And with anything, when you're trying to deliver quite a broad people strategy and build the team and obviously handle the pandemic, etc., we were getting pulled in so many different directions. So my observations when I first joined was we were doing a little bit for women, and only a little bit. So sponsoring awards, holding roundtable discussions, but we weren't doing anything else for other underrepresented groups at all. We've got an equality and diversity policy in place, which probably hadn't been reviewed for 2 to 3 years, and didn't have a specific plan in place. So when I say that we started back to front, it was because we actually dived straight in, but we didn't dive straight in on reflection in the right manner. So we started to do more awareness days. So we marked our first Black History Month, and that was through engaging our people and asking them to contribute to social media posts about their experiences and how did they feel about Black History Month? Was it something that was important to them? Was it something that they liked seeing, being a part of, etc.? We marked our first Pride, and again, it was quite largely social media driven. And like many organisations who changed their logos, we did that. And then the second year.
Actually, before we go on to the second year, can I ask? I guess this is not.
Yes, yeah.
It's not Newsnight or anything like that, but I think companies come under a lot of, or get a lot of flack for doing social media or like publicly facing,
Absolutely.
Look how pro we are. Do you think it came from that kind of place? As in, we have to be seen to be we have to seen to have a strategy. We have to be seen to, I think it's called greenwashing or pinkwashing or whatever it is. Was it more of a sort of, that's how we need to be seen in the market, or was it from I'd love to see what kind of conversations you had around that.
Where did it come from?
Yeah.
I don't think we thought deeply about what we were trying to achieve, to be honest. I don't think we had, because we didn't have a set of objectives laid down as to where are we now, where are we trying to get to. That came later. But it was done from a genuine perspective that we wanted to encourage more diversity into the business. So when thinking, we use social media quite a lot from a recruitment point of view. So we felt by featuring some of our people in a career campaign that we call Being Pick Everard, and by demonstrating some of the diversity that we already had, we felt that was a positive message to share, and that might encourage then people to think, actually, well, that's good. There might be some opportunity for me there, but on reflection, no, I'll come on and talk about what that plan looks like, but it was absolutely back to front. And whilst I don't regret doing it that way, because I think in a way some of the things that we did and built on helped show that we were being authentic about wanting to drive change. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how do you understand that starting point properly. So the social media piece, quite rightly, there was no substance. There was no substance underneath it, although it was being done from a best intentions point of view. And
actually, before you go on, I do want to say I believe really deeply when it comes to EDI. It's such a thorny issue, and I think that actually the best intentions don't get given enough weight.
Yes,
and I think that in our own journey at Instant Impact, we've made a number of missteps along the way.
Yeah.
But we'd rather give it a go, make mistakes and make progress at the same time, rather than, I think, what I see in some other companies where they're like, right, we've got to get everything right.
Yes.
And then they don't do anything. It's sort of analysis paralysis.
Yes.
So I think I wasn't having a go there. It's more of a just sort of understanding.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it won't have been a point, you raising that point, won't have been a point that our people didn't raise with us as well. So some of the comments that we had back about the Black History Month features was actually, we shouldn't need this day. We should have a strategy in place which, we as an employer and others in society are thinking about this all year round. we need to get to a stage where we don't need such days at all, because there's no hidden history there anymore.
Yeah, it's not an exception.
It's not an exception. It's not an exception. We are all informed. It is on the curriculum at schools, etc. And everybody is aware, of a broad history. So yeah, it was interesting, and I think that quite honestly is probably the point at which then I was thinking to myself, okay, fine. Well, how do we keep it alive all year round for all groups as much as we possibly can do? Albeit at that stage, going into year 2, we still didn't have a plan. We invested money into more events, so we had external speakers come in. They were really, really well engaged with by our people. So from an education and awareness perspective, that was fantastic. We started reviewing our online Dignity at Work training, launched a Dignity at Work toolkit. So again, that really helped us think about some of the behaviours in the workplace, and started that review of the policy, but we still didn't have any key objectives in place, nor a clear plan, which, people listening might think, well, that makes no sense. But I think the point is that, as I say, I think the time that we were doing it, there was an awful lot going on. And we as a team, I think, were still quite insular at that point. We weren't fully engaging our people in that diversity and inclusion agenda and gaining their views on what we should be doing next, half as much as we should have done.
So what happened? I mean, that's a really great reflection. How did you move from that to a world?
Yeah, so it was actually a client of ours, a new client that we won, who were particularly passionate about the EDI agenda. And that really opened our eyes then as to how crucial it was to get a fully fledged, measurable EDI plan in place, and to move away from this concept of running a programme of events to actually having a proper measurable plan in place that was going to drive transformational change in the place of EDI. And it wasn't that we weren't already thinking that was something that we needed to do, because obviously the people strategy was very broad and we'd got lots of measures in other aspects of the plan. That really accelerated that need. And as a result of us winning that client, EDI became a weekly agenda item on a meeting with that client, which I needed to attend.
Wow, amazing.
And report on it on a weekly basis. So that gave me a real eye-opener and push, and to see such a significant organisation doing things properly, it did make me sit up and realise, okay, we've got a proper opportunity here, and what is that going to look like? So it was at that point that the 13-point plan was created for EDI. Could have been a 10-point plan, could have been a 15-point plan, but we got very clear on what that 13-point plan should look like. Where were we in our journey? How could we maintain some of that great stuff that we were doing? Because let's face it, bringing in external speakers, particularly people with real expertise in this area, was a great thing, providing it's part of a bigger package of activity and focus, whilst actually getting really clear on that journey and how we were going to get there. And the first thing was to understand the workforce, first of all, because you can't measure until you actually understand the workforce. So as part of the onboarding process, we were voluntarily asking people to provide us with diversity information. Like many businesses, you don't get 100% of people filling that in. And I guess whilst we were pushing forward the rest of the people strategy, there were other things happening. So we moved our onboarding online. We moved to e-contracts and e-offers. So that meant the paper forms that were being issued previously were now significantly better at being analysed, because we could do reporting in the system. But we'd, of course, got hundreds of other people within the business who'd already joined us. And we went out to all of them we went out to all of them with a spreadsheet to start with, and that I called that our EDI index. And we asked them all sorts of information about their background. Of course, it was voluntary, but clearly set out what we were trying to achieve, why it was important to them and us. And we did a really big push for that data and, needed to do so in a manner that was going to be safe for them so that they, I guess, had clarity, as I say, over, well, how are you going to use this data? It's so personal, it's so sensitive about me. We've never done anything to this scale before. And the transparency around that and what we were looking to achieve was really crucial.
And I often find, it's interesting you mentioned transparency around that. It feels to me like often these sort of programs from HR, their relative success so much depends on communication. So
yes,
how did you go about communicating what you were looking to achieve, the what, the why, the how?
Absolutely. Okay. So I guess just to put in context my style, I think that's really helped because
Dictatorial, right?
Of course. I'd already put in place some people forums, and I'd been driving by that stage this sort of strong sense of involvement from everybody. And I'd like to think it was very visible in the business as well, very visible from the point of view of this is the feedback that you've given us and this is what we've done about it. So I think building that trust before we'd even sort of got to the stage of, talking about the most personal and sensitive information about people, was really important because that, as I say, gave people some psychological safety around how that information was going to be held confidentially, around how it was going to be used, etc. But setting out for them the beginnings of that 13-point plan was important. So, sharing the aims and objectives around we need and want a diverse workforce. We need it from the point of view of having real innovation within the business and different perspectives. We need it because we know it's going to give us better performance. We know it will enable us to open up pools of talent that we hadn't been accessing before. So actually even from a wellness point of view, that was going to be important as well, sort of team dynamics. And showing a genuine commitment to them. So at that point, we had an intranet page built, which focused on diversity and inclusion. Of course, the other side is the culture and the culture of belonging that we were trying to drive. That played nicely to the strengthening of the Being Pick Everard campaign, not just something that was external, but also real integral part of who we are as a business, our identity, how it aligns with our values as well as an organisation. So, setting that out clearly and ensuring that sort of people could sort of see themselves in it and seeing actually, yes, that's important to them as well as us as a business.
And were you able to get your CEO involved in this comms, or was this a people and culture team only?
So we are a partnership. So we have 7 partners. So we don't actually have a CEO.
Sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry. We have a managing partner. That I think engagement of the senior team has been as gradual as the plan has been. Actually, it's the managing partner has always been on board. I think it's the balance and the investment with other elements of the people strategy. So the systems that we've had, the huge increase in learning and development, the new rewards that we've added in, it has been a real hive of activity for us as we've worked through that people strategy. So the conversations have largely been around us making sure that overall that people strategy is sustainable, that the business can keep pace with the level of change, and ensuring that the messaging is right around it as well. That's been really crucial for him.
That's really interesting. So we've done point 1 of the 13.
Yes.
13 point. So what did that tell you about the business, and how did you sort of take it from there?
So what that gave us then was, I guess, a sense of who was willing, who was willing across the business to share their information with us. And we're just going out now, actually, a couple of years later, to revisit that. When it comes to reporting on the new applicant tracking system, reporting on, interviews, etc., that's been fairly straightforward from a reporting point of view. But what we'd really like to do is the journey mapping with regards to what do promotions look like, what does engagement with our mentoring scheme look like from a diversity perspective. That's more challenging. Without that data, it's very difficult to make those measures. And culturally, we can assess things through engagement surveys as well. So we do things like Investors and People. We do in-house surveys as well. So we're still, I would say, quite early on in that measurement approach, because we don't have 100% of the data still. Yeah. So it is still a little bit of guesstimation, in terms of sort of looking at, the 20% of people who haven't filled out the questionnaire and may never will. Having to sort of think about, we're either sort of completely discounting that 20% or doing some sort of broad estimations as to where they may sit based on the data that we've already got.
Yeah, and you're always going to have that
Yes,
uncertainty in the data, and people who don't want to share their data for perfectly understandable reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from where you are now, what's the strategy to?
Yeah, absolutely. Improve? Okay. So some of the key points that we've been able to move forward immediately, we've done a full review of all of our policies and our practices, and done so from an EDI perspective, which had never been done before. So to give you a simple example, compassionate leave policy was set as standard, with no consideration of different cultural backgrounds and how the differences in how people mourn. So we've made sure that consideration is given for that, and that's in conversation with the partner. If people need additional time, and we provide that. That's exactly the same for flexible working and hybrid working as well, to give other examples. So that lens across the policies has been really important. We changed our Christmas break from the point of view that people can opt out of having the entire Christmas period off, because if they don't celebrate Christmas, then actually they might want to use that time at another point in the year. So that's been great. There's been some real tangible movement. We've moved away from the topic-based people forums and more into diversity-based people forums. So the first diversity forum that we put in place was a Women in Leadership forum, and that's been running about 6 months now. And we come together and we discuss some of the barriers that people have faced within the industry, within our practice, what their aspirations are, and what can we do to support them in getting to where they want to be. We've had, driving the sort of the external expertise input, International Women's Day, Women in Construction Week. We've marked that with a programme of events, and again, focusing on the education and awareness. And we've also implemented a Diversity Champions Forum as well, which is from volunteers across the business from different backgrounds coming together to look at that EDI plan, look at where we're aspiring to drive to, whether it's greater diversity and talent attraction, or a change in the people experience, or thinking about that next generation of talent coming through. And obviously it's really important to the next generation as to what we're doing, to some of the cultural experiences that people have. And, we look at things through that group from a lens of disability and neurodiversity, race and age and gender. And that's been fantastic, because they are the people that we're trying to reach. They are the people that are the exact professionals that we need in our business, that are going to help grow that business. And I think it's just fabulous that they sort of see their role in helping us push that culture to the next level.
So I guess, as with any good EDI program, a lot of different things to consider, a lot of different channels and swimming, and all of sort of, I guess, a lot to achieve. Have you set targets for your 2025? We'd like to see X percentage of representation in this area, or?
That's a really interesting question. No. No, we haven't. And actually, I'm still in two minds as to whether we do. And the reason for that is, at the moment, I'm actually writing a dissertation at the moment about, what is it that's getting in the way of qualified females in the industry and reaching the most senior positions. And as I've worked through the journey of understanding the existing extent of the workforce, and I think we're probably slightly better than average at Pick Everard. I've been really interested to look at the research in this area. I've read, as you can imagine, writing that dissertation, I've read so many pieces of research. And there's evidence to suggest that actually setting quotas doesn't work. That in itself isn't enough. It's not the answer, and it can actually be viewed as quite negative, albeit you've got to make sure that you're heading somewhere. So, as I say, in terms of it being a measurable plan, there's pieces in there around, we're going to review our policies and get them updated by this date and make sure, so it's measurable from that point of view. We're able to track the journey of, have we got more diversity applying to us? Are we retaining more diversity, etc.? But no, I haven't set quotas. I haven't. And I am still in two minds as to whether I do, because if it's not going to be specifically helpful to do that, then I don't see the point. So I could of course say, right, actually in another year's time we'll have 2%, because you've got to be realistic about it, a 2%, or it could be as broad as we want an upward trend. We want an upward trend, and the measures are pinned to the activity that we're taking to achieve that upward trend. And our aim is to report on that with our people, make sure that that is visible on the internet at any point for them to, to access it and say that they've got ideas and they want to contribute to that. But if we haven't got the culture there to underpin that, and that's the less tangible piece, to measure, you can measure that through an engagement survey, then having those quotas in place are probably not going to be as, the route to the success that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can see both sides. I mean, the thing I always come back to, a couple of quite oddly different examples of this, though, are, I think Accenture, I can't remember exactly the timing on this. I think it was about a decade ago, where the CEO just came in and said, this is ridiculous. We're having 50-50 representation across the business. Announced it to the world, reported on it every board meeting, and it was so. Yeah. That's one of the most, when you look at gender, at least one of the most fairly representative businesses in the world, certainly at that scale. Yeah. And given that they're in tech, I think that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, really impressive.
And then the other one I look at, and this is absolutely not a plug or a sign for my political leaning, though, is obviously David Cameron and the initiatives that he put in during his tenure led to, 5 years later, the most diverse cabinet of all time. Yeah, now, what they did is another. It's another kettle of fish, which we will not get into today because we need to talk about HR, not we need to talk about politics.
Absolutely.
But I do see the value of a really, I guess, whether it's based on these are the numbers we need to see or not. I do see the value of a really extreme push, especially when you're starting from, I hope you don't mean this, I don't mean this.
No, yeah.
When you're starting from quite a low bar.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'd love to hear where you end up.
Well, I
next
next
time.
time we talk, I might have completely changed my perspective because I'm learning all of the time about this area. But I think right now, I think having the numbers around the table, shall I say, in itself isn't going to drive cultural change within the industry. So certainly some of the things that people struggle with is what can be quite an aggressive culture dominated by, particular parties, as I say. And that can be very difficult for people to get their voice heard. And even if you've got, numbers around the table, I think unless those numbers were then dominating and higher than what is currently the dominating group, it would be very, very difficult for their voice to be heard.
Yeah.
And culturally, the industry can be inflexible with regards to, working time. It can be quite inflexible with regards to its approach to people practices. There can be stereotypes, can be quite a little bit old-fashioned from that point of view as an industry. And so, yeah, maybe in 12 months' time, maybe 24 months' time, maybe I am talking about measures and not measures, but actual quotas that have got in place. But I would want to be doing some work on the culture first in order to make sure that it's the right platform to start from, so that people, can genuinely be their authentic selves. They can feel safe putting their hand up for things. They can feel really properly able to champion themselves and be championed by others in the business, to go wherever they aspire to be. And I don't believe the quota alone will get us there.
No, I completely understand that. So just as we're wrapping up, I'd love to finish off with a question of, so we're going to meet again in a year.
Yeah.
What do you hope to be reporting back?
Right. Well, I think what I've talked about today shows that whilst I still feel like we're in our infancy, it's not that we haven't done anything. I think actually there's a reasonable amount that we've been doing, but I think that there are still some groups in the business that we're not doing enough for. And I'd like to address that. I'd like to make sure that we've got capacity in order to give the right level of support, whether that is, capacity from the point of view of actually having someone 100% of their time dedicated to looking at this area within my team. I'd like to ensure that, we've obviously got a number of salary and promotion reviews coming up. I'd like to be seeing greater support in the business in terms of actually continuing to adapt those practices and those experiences, and for me to have some more examples of things that we've done to make sure that we've got greater diversity in terms of use of executive coaching and mentoring, and able to use some of that data from the EDI index to actually properly show journey mapping, and see actually are we better than we were last year, because that culture change is really making a difference. And also, I'd like us to be giving some thought to intersectionality. I think that's not something that we've really got a deep enough understanding of and a deep enough thought around. Quite rightly, gosh, we're all a blend, we're all a mix. We've got different identities even amongst ourselves, and perhaps approaching the plan in terms of almost like trying to put people in one box just simply isn't right. So I'd like to see that next evolution and making sure that that plan is more holistic and taking account of that.
Fantastic. Well, lots of different things to look at.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it's going to be busy.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for what I really thought a very self-reflective, thought-provoking, transparent view of where you guys are now. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens over the next year.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure that year is going to surprise me as well. As I say, with those staff forums in place, there could be great ideas coming from our people that I've not even thought of yet, and continuing to sort of look out in the industry and other industries and professional organisations. That's just going to help us stay educated. And yeah, who knows? Hopefully I'll come back and share some good success stories with you.
Oh, I've got no doubt. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.